barrel roll across the finish line, laughing at certain disaster as they shake hands for the devil. All that and much more this Sunday at high noon on the Motormouth Radio Hour. Call in and speak live with the Wizards of Speed and live feed, Chris Switzer and Ray Garino. Bring the whole family. Kids under 12 get in free. Every Sunday at noon on WHPC. Take the Long Island Expressway to the Meadowbrook Parkway and look for the sign saying no parking on the expressway and no express service on the parkway. Go right on Highway 24 to Garden City. $2 all-day parking includes Pit Pass. Sunday!
Yeah, we're going to ride the whiskey train. It's Easter, of course. Why wouldn't we do that? You've tuned in to MotorMouth Radio, Long Island's only automotive talk show with your hosts, Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. Chris, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine on this holy day, my brother. How are you?
Very good, very good, very good. We're thinking that.
Doing all kinds of automotive things and stuff and things and literally getting chased out of the kitchen. I'm glad I'm here. Let's put it that way.
You know, it's good to have a place to go.
Yes, and this is a great place to be. And if you got chased out of the kitchen, call us and lament like we are. 516-572-7440 to
Right.
tell us how you would the size of the knife that was thrown at you.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's the tradition, you know. It is the tradition of a lot of cookery going on and things like that. There's, you know, it's that's what happens this time of year. It's great. And
Sure
it's
thing.
it's like go to the garage, go out to the store, go get the paper, go get another paper, you know, go do something, go rake the leaves, you know, whatever, go do something. So but
Right.
it's a beautiful day, and we'll get to the weather later, but it's going to be kind of rainy now starting during the week. So
Yes.
we have to enjoy this while we can.
Oh yeah. The last torrential downpour we had, I think I told you I had to bail out the Explorer.
Yeah.
It had literally filled with water, and I found both of my drains on either side of the cowl were completely clogged. And I mean, the drain itself, like you can get like 4 fingers of your hand in it. It's a pretty decent sized drain that dumps right out past the firewall, obviously, past the engine and the chassis, right onto the pavement. So when both of them were completely clogged with what looked like fertilizer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was the material that was in those drains?
Oh my gosh, compost of the scientific kind. It was all different. Now, mind you, where I live amongst the trees here, they got a ton of trees. There's you get a whole mixture of seeds and leaves and usually every month between now and let's say June, July, you have your cornucopia of junk falling off these trees. May is the worst because May has those butterfly seeds, and those little sons of guns will end up everywhere. Everywhere. You will find them. I actually laugh. This is the minutia. There are 4 little tiny vent holes, and I tell you, they're about as big as like pencil points, and they're square, and they're on either side of the cowl of the Explorer. About 4 or 5 of them, small little things. They measure less than an inch when you line them all up. Those seedling things will fall in there and line up. They will literally line up. You can get like about a dozen of them, and it's just they stick straight up. I'm like, how in the world did they get there?
Yeah.
The chances of that happening, but it happens every year.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So it gets everywhere. So yeah, how was your week?
Well,
They
that's
just
why
be blast.
That revives an old spot on this show. I used to do a thing usually in every spring and fall, was to clean your car's nose, if you remember, because now we get nasal infections and all that stuff, and we have to take care of our noses. So the car's nose too, and not the nose in the front like the grill that we talk about, but where the air comes in, which is that vent on the cowl.
Right.
Which actually encompasses, so you can look at the vent in the cowl like the nose and the nostrils, and those drains are like the sinuses that come down the inside to flush all the stuff out.
Very true.
And you need to flush it out on a car. I can't tell you how many, well, every car I work on, I look at that, and there's sometimes, right, I'll literally push a car out or move it and just blow all that out before I even have to work on it.
Good.
And like with the family cars, I'm kind of nuts about it. Every time I open the hood, I'm grabbing handfuls of leaves and things and throwing them on the ground because I know what it does. It accumulates, and that stuff, the finer stuff, gets in, and that's what ends up going through the cabin air filter and clogging that up, and and killing performance of your heat and your AC.
Do you ever pull a cabin air filter out of a car you've just purchased and find all of the? Oh my gosh, you can almost get a full history on where this person parked this car before you bought it. There's acorns and leaves and all kinds of pine cones. Yeah.
I've done a bunch of them. One of the worst, and I have to fall on the sword on this one. One of the worst I've ever done was in my own Mazda.
Oh, wow. Really? Why?
And I'll tell you why. It was an '06 Mazda, and I didn't know if it had a cabin air filter or not.
It should, right?
It wasn't listed in the owner's manual. With most cars, you open the glove box door and there's a drawer. It wasn't there.
Right.
And I saw conflicting information online saying, yes, there is, no, there isn't. So I never really knew. And then I guess I found some research that showed, yeah, there is, but it's not where you would think it would be. What you had to do was lower the glove box lid,
right,
take it off.
Good.
Lower the fuse panel that's under the glove box, drop that down, take a panel out. Now, there was panels on the side by the console. They had to come out, and the cabin air filters were up in there. So first design.
Holy smokes, that's terrible.
And you literally had to do about 45 minutes worth of work to get at them. And so when I finally got at it, it was one summer, I said, okay, I went out there in the morning and said, I'm just going to tackle this. Right. And I did get them out. There were two of them stacked on top of each other like this. You took the bottom one out and the top one would fall. You pull that one out. And boy, they were pretty. I'll put a picture up. I'll put a picture online. It was pretty gunky.
Yeah, because I've actually have had pretty good luck with cabin air filters. The one in the Mazda, not a problem. Came right out. Actually, I should think. Now that I think about it, I should take a look at that one again because it's been a couple of years since I've pulled that out. And the Explorer was the same way. They're pretty much, they're not the same car, but they're incredibly similar. I mean, obviously Ford and Mazda were together at the time they were built, so a lot of parts were mixed back and forth. But even though they don't look the same, there's an incredible amount of similarities, and even in the cabin air filters there was as well.
Yeah. Certain things are become pretty much status quo across brands. Like now we're starting to see cabin air filters all in the same place.
Right.
BMWs have them under the hood by the cowl. It's really easy to get to. You open the hood in the back and it's right there. Some BMWs, not all of them. Some Audis also.
Right.
So standardization is the word I'm looking for. There was no standardization in the beginning, and they're not. But even that, there was some that I did that were not standard, like in the glove box, but they weren't hard to do. Another one that was really tough, I was just talking to my daughter, and I said, you got to watch down in North Carolina now. Once that pollen hits down there, they get a pollen wave, and then it goes away and they get a second one in the fall. I said, let the pollen wave go through. Let it pass. Let those weeks go. Then you change the cabin air filter.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I told her your RAV4 is a piece of cake. You drop the glove box door, boom, you take it out. I said, now the Volvo, on the other hand, that your soon-to-be husband is driving, because I put a filter in that before I sent it down there.
You had to speak Swedish in order to do that.
There were two panels under the glove box that had to come out with these little screws, and then you had to do some dancing around. So I told him, I said, listen, I don't know if, I said, I understand you want to do this kind of maintenance. That may not be the place to start. Start with the RAV because this one is a little more over the top. A little. So some cars are just very hard to do, and that's all there is to it. But
I think, and it's funny because I think a Volvo, everything is very hard to do on those cars. They're quite the chore. They're not built. They're not engineered with maintenance in mind. I don't think they are. I don't think they're.
I haven't done much close to it, so I don't know. But I want to tell you something that happened this week, which is great. We spoke a little bit about this before. During the week when it's rainy, if you're looking for something to do, our good friend Mike Mooney down in North Carolina contacted me this week. He did an interview on WHKY in North Carolina.
WHKY, salute.
And they have a site, WHKY.com. Okay. It's called The First Talk Show with Hal Rowe. That's the host, Hal Rowe.
Hal Rowe.
And he interviewed Mike Mooney because Mike he's been living down there for a long time. But Mike gave him the whole history of himself being up here in Suffolk County, and they talked a lot about the Griffith automobiles and whatnot.
Yes, which was Griffith was a TVR, which was a British car, and someone was crazy enough to put a small block V8. I think it's a Ford motor in them, and basically you have a 300 plus horsepower V8 in a 1,400 pound car. Do the math. You're leaving the ground at some point. With a combination like that.
I learned something too. Now I've known Mike for a long time. I've read his book, and
we've interviewed him. Great interview. The times we did talk to him. Sure.
Right. I've had the fortune of being at his house, seeing his man cave. But he told Hal, those Griffiths we knew they came with the Ford 289s. And there's a picture in Mike's book, which I'll post online, of an engineer there on an assembly line, standing in the cradle of the car with the engine out, with a sledgehammer over his head to clearance the cross member for the oil pan.
Isn't that right? Didn't he mention something about the way the cross member was hit, prove the authenticity of the vehicle or something like that?
Right.
The dent.
But I found out that at the very end, and I didn't know this, and if it was in the book, I must have missed it. I got to go back and look. Mike said there was the last couple of cars that were built that had Chrysler engines in them.
Oh, wow.
I think it was a 600, the Griffith 600. And they were these Chrysler 273s.
Oh, those engines. Because I'm thinking a 318 would never fit in there.
But he said the 273 was heavier than the 289, which I found a bit odd. I didn't know why that would be the case. So
Chrysler and their over-engineering, I'm assuming.
And I also learned that, of course, Mike was from Lake Ronkonkoma, which Hal said, what is that, Lake Ronkonkoma?
Ronkonkoma.
Yeah, people can't pronounce the towns. No, Mike says, no, Lake Ronkonkoma, the resting place of the wild goose. He said his father coined that term. I don't know from where.
I think I saw a T-shirt yesterday.
Yeah. So if you do like I did, go to WHKY.com. It's a little cryptic. It wasn't real easy to find. You got to navigate your way through. You find the first talk show with Hal Rowe.
Right.
I don't know how long they keep their podcasts up, if it's week by week or not. But if you're lucky, you can find it in here. Mike, he just doesn't.
Well, if anything, Mike is a very good interview. So I'm just for that alone.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
Definitely, and go and see it. I love it. So I'm looking at real_motormouth the Fed is sassafras.
That's on
here
Instagram.
on Instagram, and I go right to the picture of a red Rolls-Royce convertible.
There we go.
Wow. That was the car you looked at last week, huh?
That was a Rolls.
Pretty. I like that.
So
sweet. Of course, I'm scrolling through the pictures. I see the flask and the tumblers. The shot, which of course is a perfect mix.
Door. Yeah.
In each door. How luxurious.
Oh yeah. I want to put that in my car.
And sure. And the local constables will love you for it. And of course the soldering iron, which we discussed. And then I get to talk about a picture. I
know what it is. Okay, I'm thinking, what the heck is up there? It's so funny.
Yeah, the picture of me as a young man getting out of my R-body Dodge St. Regis, parked next to the 1400 WSTCAM van.
Kind of surprised you on that one, huh?
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, where'd that come from? Yeah,
I remember those days when I used to work for WSTCAM.
yeah. It was
Hysterical.
fitting,
And obviously, I'm sorry, just to interrupt you. And of course, a very good shot of your Fiat is in there too. So
and it's when I do this, the things that I choose to put pictures up have to be things I have pictures of, obviously, or else I can't put a picture up for it. And I don't want to go searching the web for pictures. I want to use real, our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I had that picture in a Chris Switzer folder from years ago. And said, I'm going to find it. And boy, did I ever. Said, perfect. It's going on.
I have pictures of that car, but not any pictures of me in the car. Like I have pictures of the car.
Yeah.
So that's hysterical that you were able to mine that one, dig that one up.
Hey.
That was pretty funny.
Well, see, that's what I do. I make a list here of stuff that's going to go on that post, and then I don't have to remember. I just look at my own. That's like I said. Now, if I had to write it down, it's.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we've gotten to that age, I think, where, and I think we discussed this. We touched on the subject, I think, off air, where it's because there are so many things that we're doing, and you've mentioned it. You have been the busiest you've ever been since you've retired, which I could totally understand. I mean, I dig it. That's who you are. I know you're not the guy that's gonna plop down and watch Regis and Kelly from the Barca Lounger on a daily basis, like some people that were related to me used to do. But yeah, I know you're a man of action, and yeah, there are times where 9 or 10 different things from different sources come filtering through you at once, and how the heck are you supposed to keep all those plates spinning and remember it all?
Yeah,
I do the same thing. I'm like, holy moly! So yeah, I'm glad you write it down.
And then you have a week like this where I was at the shop on it was Friday, working on that Jeep, and I came home in the afternoon, and I had some other stuff to do, and I just sat in the chair in the living room next to my wife. She was on the couch, and I said, "You know what happens when I sit in this chair in the afternoon?
You're done."
Oh yeah, and I was out. I think 7 o'clock. I got up. It was like maybe 3:30 when I sat down. 7 o'clock. Took off my work shoes and pants, put on some lounge pants, sat my recliner, and I went to sleep again. No, I started coming down with this upper respiratory thing.
Oh, that's why you sound like you got a pack of pollen in your nose.
It just kicked the crap out of me all weekend. I've just been down for the count. Now I went to sleep like 11, 12 hours that night. Oh yeah, crazy. So that curveball comes in, and it's like, okay, well, everything else now has to just take a second fiddle. But
right.
I wanted to talk about something. This is a great topic. I see it on TV. I see it on the YouTube channels I watch, and I live it, especially in the shop. And I want to figure out how to encapsulate it. You can maybe help me. Basically, the basic premise is, at this point, never assume anything is correct when you work on an old car or motorcycle, or kind of like if you had an old house. And the reason being, I just watched another video with a guy, Kiwi. It's the guy that Uncle Tony knows down in Tennessee.
Yes.
He got in a 63 Corvette, and the tranny the 4-speed was toast.
Okay.
But he rebuilt the transmission and then drove the car and said, you know what, there's still a couple things now we got to work at. It has a cold start issue. So I actually got to write to him, because he told the air cleaner off and showed a WCFB carburetor.
Okay.
Most people don't know what those are.
Right. I barely know what that is.
It stands for William Carter 4-barrel. That's what the
Thank you.
And it was it was Rochester's 4-barrel before the Quadrajet.
Got it. Right. I know what it looks like. Yes.
It's just a square brick.
Yes. It's a brick.
55 Chevys had them. The Corvettes the dual quads had them, because they were only like, some of them were 350, 400 CFM. They weren't big.
My 63 Cadillac had one.
Sure.
Yes,
So,
I know which one you're talking about.
The one Nomad we have in the family has one, and I rebuilt it many years ago. And many years ago, I had problems finding a kit for this thing. So Kiwi says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take this apart. We're just gonna rebuild it." And then he cuts frame and he's driving the car. And I went right to, like, all right, where'd you get a kit for that thing?
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, he's driving the car and he still feels a little bit of a problem in the low gears. He goes, well, let's check the tune-up, and he pulls the plugs out, and he says, okay, the car had the wrong plugs in it, which is kind of common.
That's a sign.
He says they were all gapped wrong. They were all gapped. Now that car had points in it. They should have been gapped at at like 30 thousandths.
Right.
They were all at like 45 or 50, like
Yep.
an HEI gap.
That's a sure problem.
And he said, all I did was I just took a fresh set of the right plugs, gapped them, put them in. He goes, now we're driving the car. It feels great.
Mm-hmm.
Never assume anything is what it should be, because, we forget, and I know you fall into this too. Even when I get a car like anything, these cars that I work on, to me, they're still either like new cars. Like if I look at my Impala, that's a new car. That's 26 years old already.
That is a new car to me too. You're right. 26 years old.
Yeah, but now it's an old car. And like this Jeep I'm working on is a 91, and it doesn't look old, but man, in technology terms, it is.
Yes.
And so we still think, at least this is how my mind works, that because it's not that old, well, it can't be that screwed with yet, but it is 30 years old. And yes, it can be screwed with that much. And that's the thing I keep forgetting, that, I always take things like with this Jeep for granted. Like, okay, I know it had some issues, but the electrics in the fuel system look to be in good shape otherwise. It isn't a rust bucket. It isn't terrible. But most of the electrical problems I solved on this thing were all due to bad connections, not
dirt,
faulty parts. Yeah.
I believe it.
If you look at the latest Instagram post, and it's also on Twitter and on Facebook.
I actually did. That was the first post I looked at, and it was the light switch, the headlight switch, the rocker switch on the Jeep. Did you pull that from the bottom of a lake?
Well, there were two that I posted, I think, earlier in the week on the headlight rocker switch.
Right.
Which I took apart and cleaned. And then I got a dimmer. The car didn't have a dimmer switch in it. So I got one from this junkyard in Connecticut. And the last post I made is the dimmer switch opened up.
That was the dimmer switch that was...
And I cleaned it with deoxit and a little fiberglass pencil that I have.
Looked great.
Cleaned up really. You have to expand those pictures to see the difference in the, in what happened.
Oh, yeah. It looked like it was covered in mud.
Well, it came out of a junkyard.
Yeah.
Now the other switch was in the car, and even after I cleaned it, I put it in, and I couldn't get the headlights to work still.
Right.
Well, then after more playing around and going back to the sockets, and I have a set of there are three pair of tweezers of different widths, but they're diamond encrusted.
Okay.
So you can put it over a terminal and wipe it and clean it, or you could
take
that one leg of it and stick it into a terminal.
I like the hand gesture. That was very arousing.
And you work that back and forth. Once, all I had to do was clean up these terminals. Now I had already ordered a switch because I thought the switch was bad. It wasn't working. It ended up, you know what? No, it wasn't the switch. It was really just these connections that were bad. Because I assumed, since everything else was right, the connections. No, I was wrong with the connection. So now the new switch came in. I put it in anyway. So give the guy what he paid for.
Right.
But never take for granted that something is what you think it should be, because it may not be. Probably won't be.
I had a couple of minutes to kill. I turned on the television. I was watching Motor Trend TV, and of course it was Roadkill Garage. I know it's I think it's probably your second favorite show. Yeah. And they were Freiberger was trashing around a 69 Dodge Dart GT with his co-host, whomever it was. I can't recall the name. But it probably was. Yeah. The thing that I found interesting was this car that they were driving looked like everything was messed with. Everything was messed with.
Yeah,
I mean, it had an exhaust system held up by what looked like a wire hanger. The things were cut, things were sawed off, and they're working on this thing to like improvement. And I don't know whether it's old age or knowledge or lack of knowledge or lack of time. I would have walked away from this thing instantly because it was so screwed up.
Come down to the shop.
There was like nothing factory on this car. Everything was spooled up from in some garage somewhere. I'm sure there was heavy metal music involved, and some sort of cannabis.
I was just watching
something. Yeah.
Derek Bieri. He did the Vice Grip Garage. Now he's got like he's on his third show already. I
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, what he did, the show I watched, he just pulled in, he bought a dually, a GMC dually pickup truck. He was going to make it his tow vehicle with a gooseneck. And he got it because it has a big block Chevy in it and it's an automatic and everything. And it'd be perfect. So they go to the guy's house. They're going to get it running. And of course, they said, okay, it's been sitting here 15 years. So they determined the fuel system wasn't working. So they gave it fuel and it would start and run.
Mhm.
And it would had oil pressure, then it didn't have oil pressure. So he drains the oil and puts new oil in. And then it had oil pressure, it ran, and it didn't. So they drove it like 8 miles. Oil pressure gave out. They towed it home.
Right.
What he showed was when they're looking at it and he pulled off the air cleaner, there's what, I mean, this was like the best. Out of the power steering pump was a plumbing L, literally a plumbing, cast iron plumbing L hose going over somewhere else. Now, I saw this on some of the cars in the shop. Some of the wiring had home wire nuts on them, connecting the wires. Whoever had this thing before he was a carpenter. He wasn't a mechanic.
Right, exactly.
Plumber.
He went looking for car parts in like Home Depot.
Everybody jokes about the wire nuts, and I say, hey, you know what? It pulls current through 120-volt wire. It's going to work on 12 volts. It's just not. There are certain things that should be used in certain applications, and it's not that it obviously not that it can't be, not that it.
Of course it could, but it's just so hokey.
And it was interesting too because I just had read an article in a magazine about the TBI units, the throttle body injectors. About this guy. The article I read, the guy was talking about how damn reliable those things were and how they were. You almost couldn't kill them, and they were. They were on lots of cars, and that was the transition between the computer controlled 2 and 4 barrels that Rochester had and port fuel injection.
Okay.
Because this gave you the shower heads. They were called the shower heads that would dump the fuel down. And they did work fine. They didn't give you the most power or performance, but they worked. They had great cold start and everything. Derek sees that and he called it something. He called it a taco bacon and I don't know, something weird. He gave it
I had 2 of them on my 84 Corvette. Yeah,
right.
I know what you're talking about. Sure, the shower heads.
Yeah. Well, let's go take a shower here. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to the phone and say, hi, caller. You're on with the MotorMouths.
Hey, how you doing? It's Joe.
Good, Joe. What's going on today?
What's up, Joe?
Hey, don't knock plumbing parts.
Yeah. Is that one of your fortes?
Joe, something tells me that you have a story about this.
And it was leaking inside the cabin, but you'd have to take apart the entire dash to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't afford the time or the replacement. So I just took a nipple and I disconnected the in and out for the heater core in the engine compartment, and then just put a double nipple on it and everything and just connected it together. And then for the inside, I had a hand torch for defrosting and warming up.
Vince is just having turbo broccoli injections. That's what he called it, right? And I'll tell you this, Joe. I'll tell you, I'm bringing it up as a subject, but I'm not totally kicking it out.
Hold on. Did you hear what he said? A handheld torch?
Listen,
an open flame in a vehicle. Go right ahead, Ray.
You do what you got to do. I'm going to go back about 5-6 years. I'm working on my wife's cruise. I'm at the shop. It's Saturday afternoon, late. And I did the valve cover. And what you have to do is remove these vacuum lines, get them out of the way. Now, what Chevy did in their eminent wisdom, like the corrugated covering they put over the wiring looms, right?
Sure.
Well, they also use that in a sealed piece as a vacuum transfer tube, if you will.
Okay.
So you think it's a wire harness up there, but no, it's not. It's a vacuum line. Oh. And of course, I go to move one of them, and it cracks right in half.
Of course.
Every 2 millimeters. I'm like, well, now what do I do? And it has a dedicated end on each side that goes to things.
You can't cobble something together at that point.
And you got to go to the dealer for it. The deal is closed. So I'm at the shop on Saturday, late. What am I going to do? And like you said, Chris, well, you drove the car there, right? You got to get it home. What are you going to do?
You got to drive it home?
I said, okay. I went into my scrap bucket and found a piece of 3/8 pipe nipple, threaded on each side. It was about maybe 3 inches long. It inserted perfectly into that tube. So maybe it was 5/16. It was probably 5/16. So I coated it with a little gasket,
Schmooze.
put it in each side. When I put the hose back on, it made it up perfectly to itself,
Wow.
right? Because it just cracked. Then I wrapped electrical tape around that. That was on the car for like I think the last 5 years. And I thought, hey, you know what? Let me buy the hose now. Let me go be a big shot and buy the hose. And I took that nipple, I put it back in the parts bucket. So I'm gonna reuse my stuff.
You guys are MacGyvers. Holy smokes.
You have to be.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Joe, I am so glad you listened to this program. I am so glad you contribute.
Yes.
Because, yeah, you bring up the MacGyver in all of us, and I love it.
Without a doubt. Keep doing that, Joe. Don't ever give that up. That's something, you know what? With the younger generations, that's lost.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
With my nephew, I mean, he calls up and says, "Oh, I got no steering." We get over there, and we open it up, and it turns out that his serpentine belt went. So he just didn't have the power steering.
Right.
He didn't even open the hood to look.
No, of course.
Oh, no, it just...
See, I was on that too. Again, it was 2 years ago. I'm driving home with my wife. We did food shopping, and it was summer. We had the AC on, and all of a sudden, like, wow, the AC got a little warm, and then it came on again, and then it got warm. I'm like, oh, now it's not coming back on again. Open the windows. It ends up, I lost the serpentine belt on that car too, but luckily it had electric power steering. So I kept my power steering. I just had nothing else.
Right.
So yeah. Very good, Joe.
Yeah, well, I'll let you get to the break.
All right. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Joe.
Good story.
Joe Undertaker, always fun. Yes, Joe is right. We are at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
Which it is time for all sorts of crazy stuff. I will tell you that today your WHPC weather forecast is powered by Pantano's Gourmet with locations in Hewlett and Uniondale. It's beautiful today. High's going to be like 61, 62. It is a good day. Like I said before, today's the day to get out and do it because tonight's going to be cloudy with on and off rain. Tomorrow, cloudy with rain ending by afternoon, high 53. So, the rain's going to dampen us again. Enjoy it now while you can.
Mm-hmm.
Also, listen, Monday nights, it's coming up. You can do this because now it's only Sunday. So tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
Tomorrow night, wow.
Undiscovered Discoveries.
Okay.
Right? That's like Mysterious Mysteries.
That's like what's down here in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this show features music that other radio stations are too afraid to play, along with the stories behind the songs. They should hear some of the stuff that I play. Some artists,
they should hear this program.
Right? That's right. Some you may know, some they've never heard of, kind of like the stuff that I play. You'll hear artists like Joni Mitchell, Peter Gabriel, and Wang Chung, but not the hit songs you can already hear everywhere else. Well, that's good. That sounds like a good show. It's alternative.
Yes.
From groups we know. So, Chris, do we have a special Easter honor group of the hour?
Actually, we do. And coming up after the honor group of the hour, I want to discuss how my intimate relationship with the Ford Motor Company. So yes, they're sending me love letters, and I will get to that very soon. But first, the MotorMouth Radio honor group of the hour on this holiest of holy days. We also pay tribute to the egg. And today, the MotorMouth Radio honor group of the hour, if you have a strange affection for egg-shaped vehicles. Do you spend the entire year being ridiculed for your automotive tastes and style just to be celebrated on this fine day? Are you proud of your Ford Festiva or your Toyota Echo? Do you long to ship over from Taiwan the Nissan Micra or vacation in Switzerland with the Microlino bubble car? Google it. It's pretty cool. Cool. Is the classic car on your wish list a rear-engined VW Bug or maybe a BMW Isetta with its front opening door? Well, if you own a second-gen Toyota Yaris and you are longing for a, dare I say it, Audi TT, then you are part of the MotorMouth Radio honor group of the hour on this fine Easter afternoon.
That's good. That's a good one. You got some real weird winners on that list, I'll tell you that. So if you listened to this station earlier in the week, you saw that we kind of went off the air for a little bit. There was a problem with I heard the stream worked, but the air signal was down. So we dedicate our next song, which is called Power Failure, to that event. And we'll be back with more MotorMouth Radio in just a sec with Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. on 90.3 WHBC. Kick up the power.
Question about your car or someone else's car, then give the Motormouths a call, 516-572-7440.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Limerick and Oceanside, who remind you that New York state law says you always have the right to choose which shop will fix your car. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services, 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. All repairs include the CarStar Lifetime Nationwide Warranty, ensuring that the experts at Celebrity Chase Collision are always on your side.
Y sí, hablamos español.
More information is available at 516-593-0920 or online at celebritychasecollision.com.
You're listening to the Motor Mouth.
How's that for a motor mouth?
I could be out driving my Corvette. I don't have to be here talking to you.
Motor mouth.
Who's this, Ray or Chris?
Yes, it's me.
Hey, how you doing, Motor Mouth?
Are you guys taking Quaaludes before the show?
Long-time caller, first-time listener.
Yeah, because Ray brings in his tools every week and Chris brings in his tools.
Motor mouth.
And then they compare tools.
You excite me. Every time I travel, I always bring my Motor Mouth Radio t-shirt with me.
Whip me, beat me, make me write bad checks.
I have a question for these guys.
Our trained staff of 2 will help.
Listen to you guys when I'm on my lunch and I'm usually driving around.
We look for 2-door cars now instead of...
Oh, I never bought a 4-door car. Cut it out.
I've gotten so much response from you guys being on the radio talking this thing up.
Quite frankly, there are better things to do with your time.
Thank you. We need you guys out there like you wouldn't believe.
You know, I really appreciate you guys getting us on there. That was very nice of you.
Yeah, I want to know what the is wrong with my car. I'm not going on a trip with you.
I'm up here in the Bronx.
Motor mouth.
And when I listen, I'm getting half Spanish music and half you guys.
Eat this balloon.
This is a good way to blow an order love show over hell. I'm going to let you guys go. You guys are off the hook.
Thank you.
There are answers, sometimes correct ones.
Good stuff.
We may have them.
MotorMouth Radio, 90.3 FM, WHPC.
Motor mouth.
Hey, you, get over here. Every Sunday, 12 to 1, you are going to tune in to hear the Motor Mouths, my friends Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. 90.3 FM, WHPC. You might learn something.
All right. Hold the applause. Hold the applause. I know John deserves it. He always was a favorite of the crowd, but
There was.
Power's back on. We're back on. Ray Guarino, Chris Switzer, MotorMouth Radio, 516-572-7440. Give us a call. Talk to us about your car concern, motorcycle, jet ski, lawnmower, ceiling fan. I don't know, make something up. Hey, you know what? I reached out to a friend of the show, Mark Warman. I wanted to get Mark back on the show because we hadn't had him on in a while, and people were asking about, hey, when are you going to get Mark back on? And sent him a couple emails, and he's always been a hard guy to get a hold of via email.
Because what is he on now? Season 26, season 32?
Yeah.
It's in 171, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, call me a boob. I don't know. I have the guy's cell phone number. I could call him. I don't want to bother the guy, really. It's like I don't want to. Yeah. So
call Jay Leno instead. Let's try that.
I did the next best thing.
What'd you do?
You
send up a bat signal.
I kind of, yeah. I called him out on social media.
Ooh, look at you.
I follow him. He follows us. When he posted something,
that is just so pre-teenage girl of you. I love it.
I know. See, I'm learning. I threw it up on social media, and he came back and said, guys, I'd love to. I always had a great time, but it's it's just so early on a Sunday because he's in Oregon, so it's
right. So he's getting up at the crack of noon.
Yeah. And I said, listen, I replied to him. I said, okay. I said, he gave me an honest reply. So I said, you know what? I can respect that. I'm a big fan of the afternoon nap too. And I like time. So I got it. But now, also during the week, he put a post up that he's going to be doing a car for Dee Snider.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Twisted Sister.
Yes.
I jumped right on that and said, hey, because I keep saying, all your Long Island, New York fans want to hear from you.
Sure.
So as soon as he posted that, I jumped back up and said, hey, you know what? D is a local Long Island legend. I mean, he's from here.
Yes, he is.
Mark, there's another guy from Long Island that's, in your wheelhouse. And he was like, yeah, yes, he is. Oh, my God, that's so cool. And then I replied, and then I remembered later, of course, it took me about a half a day to remember. I said, hey, we had Mark Mendoza, D's bass player.
Yes, we did.
With us.
Mm-hmm.
So I threw that out there too, and
talking about the exploits of his 1972 Oldsmobile Delta 88. I remember that.
Yes, he had a big Olds, right?
Yes, I remember, and he told us some sordid stories on that vehicle. We have to find that interview somewhere. It's probably on tape or disc or something.
Yeah, I said
some sort of antiquated media.
Be able to find it. It's in there somewhere. I don't know where, but it'll be in there somewhere.
Right. So anyway, you can also text us too. You know that here at Text Central, 203-670-4127, if you so choose. But anyway, just to get back, I have gotten some recall letters from the fine Ford Motor Company for my vehicle.
Oh, recall. Okay.
Recall. Yes. Now the funny thing is that I brought it in about 2 years ago. There was an issue with the rear toe stabilizer on the rear axle, the rear suspension, I should say. So I had that done. I was responsible. I had it fixed. And of course, I get another recall notice. I'm like, well, what else can go wrong with this thing? So, of course, this is funny because it's just to the Ford Explorer utility vehicles. In some of the affected vehicles, it may be possible that some of the exterior A-pillar applique trim clip attachments are not properly engaged due to proper assembly or repair. If this occurs, the A-pillar applique trim, which borders the right and left side of the windshield, Ray, you listening to this?
Yeah.
May be loose. Oh my God. Or it may become detached. And if exterior A-pillar trim part that detaches while driving can create a road hazard.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, of course.
Someone will mention it. Road hazard ahead.
Road hazard, right. So, of course, I got that. Stop my heart. Holy smokes, the A-pillar applique.
Right.
So we're going to take care of that. We filed that. All right.
I don't know about in Connecticut, but in New York, when you get a state inspection, they will hand you your receipt for the inspection and however many pages of recalls are open on your vehicle right there at the inspection place.
Well, here in Connecticut, they just give you the enema. They check your emissions. They pat you on the butt and they send you on your way.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all they do. Anyway, now this one's good. This one's good.
What do you got?
It's number 2. There's 3. This is number 2.
So
it won't go long. If your vehicle is equipped with a low-profile center console or without a center console, now remember, this is a Ford Explorer utility here, it may be possible that a police service weapon holster can cause the driver's side seatbelt buckle to flex excessively. Ray, I can't drive this vehicle with a service revolver.
That's cool that you get those reviews. Yeah, because
what am I going to do? Over a period of time, the car's seatbelt buckle cable may wear out, resulting in fraying and potentially complete separation of the seatbelt buckle. Ray, what am I going to do? Get a gun rack?
No, I have two I have two fixes for that. One is called cross draw. The other is called ankle holster.
I knew you would know.
Yes.
But of course, I know the answer to every gun question on Gun Talk.
On Gun Talk, that's right.
What's the answer to every question?
Y'all need a bigger gun.
Y'all need a bigger gun.
That's right.
Let's move on.
Which might exacerbate that problem, telling you the truth.
Exactly. So anyway, the third one I got from the Ford Motor Company, mind you, this was all within a span of 2 weeks. The third one, our records indicate that the Ford safety recall that was previously performed on your vehicle to replace the rear suspension toe links, assessment of field data indicates that the ball joint used to attach the rear toe link may be susceptible to seizing.
Oh boy.
In certain high corrosion areas. So the job that they did 2 years ago,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to redo.
Right.
So
Well, it keeps the mechanics working. So what the heck? You know,
I was like,
keeps them at it.
I couldn't believe it. I just was in shock. Each one was getting more and more ridiculous.
Right.
So now I'm going to have to make an appointment with the service department at my Ford dealership up here.
I got a good picture. I got to see if I have it at home. Vince just called it out. There's also the dash holster. I have a picture. I think it's a Tahoe, and there's a holster mounted right under the steering column.
Oh,
you can get your gun right that way too. It's another popular one for the SUV.
Okay.
Yeah. There's options, Chris. We have options. Don't worry.
But as long as those options involve acquiring a bigger gun,
There you go.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the faults and the foibles that I've been dealing with on a quasi-regular basis. So it's really funny because my wife sees me open up the recall letters now and just laugh out loud. It's like, wait a minute, my ashtray is misaligned. I have to bring the car in.
Right.
Wait a minute, I can't have a bigger gun. I got to bring the car in.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, I'll tell you what's going to go on now. I should have a new story as of next week. This week, the Jeep is going to be out, and Mike and I are going to go and pick up the next shop project on next Saturday. We're going into Jersey, taking the flatbed to Jersey.
Okay.
Picking up another mid-year, I call them mid-year, not a Corvette, but a Mustang.
Oh.
I think it's a 66.
Oh, okay. So first gen.
This is a videographer that Mike could work with who's doing some work, and they're doing stuff back and forth, and we're going to do some work on that Mustang. So he already did some resto mod stuff, and I need to pick up where he left off apparently. So
so the car's been quote unquote messed with, which has been the theme of this show this year, this hour, this year.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's going to continue. That's never going to stop because I realize, like, as these cars age, even the ones that sat, like that one Derek got that sat for 15 years, and you say, hey, it looks all original. No, then you see all the stuff that was changed 15 years ago. That some Yahoo did. So, well, this one was taken apart, and I did meet the guy. I met him at the shop about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And he seems to be working in the right fashion. He's dealing with good manufacturers, buying good parts, not just the cheapest eBay stuff. So he did the disc brake conversion, four wheel disc brake conversion on the car, and a couple other things. It's still a small block. I think I don't know what transmission's in it. I'm not even sure what I'm going to need, my job is going to be with this thing, but I'll find out as we go. But it seems like at least he was off to the right start, like doing the groundwork the right way for all of the changes. And it's funny because I can show you pictures. There's a couple cars we've had through the shop that were bought and sold. And it's another Mustang that comes to mind. And the guys will paint the chassis in all black and clean it up. Well, I had issue with, I had to do some brake work on this one particular car, and to get the brake hose off, sometimes it's easy to just unbolt the bracket that holds it from the chassis. It's usually one bolt,
Right.
American car back then, it's like 7/16, maybe half inch. And when I did that, the back of the bracket and then the chassis that it was on was just so heavily rusted because it was on there when they painted over it. They never took it off. They didn't do a restoration of the chassis.
Right.
They did a sprayification of the chassis, if you will.
Good word.
So you see these things, like you buy the car, you're not going to go in there and start, let me take this brake bracket off and see what's on no, but you see it when you're working on the car. And if you got to take the seats out, or you got to take, another component out, and that's when you get in that down and dirty, you get it down in the mud with it, so to speak.
Yes. There's that feeling. I can almost imagine that bolt that affixes that bracket right to the chassis itself. You get on there with a box wrench and you start to apply pressure to remove it, to turn it. And it kind of makes that crunchy noise, or it kind of gets a little soft. It's not as sturdy as you would think it is, and then you look up at it and the whole thing is turning, and that's when you stop and go, oh, now what? Well, you got to get the inductor.
Now you know what?
Flame on it. Those will ruin your day right there.
A lot of times those brackets are held on by a bolt. that people would think was a machine. People who don't know would think it's a machine bolt, but it's not, because it has like machine thread. But the very ends, the very top of it, it's tapered with a gash in it. It's a self-tapping cast, steel bolt, and they usually come out pretty good. They usually do, because it like relieves its own chips. Not always. I mean, and this one did come out easily.
Good.
It
Good.
did happen. You know what? I got a picture of it, so I'll put that picture up too. You can see that on.
And sometimes, not to say this with a smile, but sometimes it makes your hole bigger.
Well, it could. Yeah, it certainly could. I mean, I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yes.
There was a Camaro. The first car I worked on there was a Camaro, and what the guy did was somebody, not the guy who owned the car, somebody. I don't know who it was.
Some knucklehead.
They put new brake hoses on,
right?
But the hole in the chassis for the bracket was too big, and they couldn't put the bolt back in.
Right.
So instead of drilling one a little bit over or moving it, or
that would have been
a bolt. I mean, you could have done a lot of things.
Right. Sure. What they do?
He drilled another hole and mounted it to the upper control arm. So as the control arm went up and down, the brake hose just went with it. I was like,
what?
It does technically go in that plane of motion. It does. I think I have a picture of that one too.
That is ridiculous.
That's why I say, people can talk about this stuff till they're blue in the face. Until you're under there and you've seen with your own eyes the stuff that goes on, you don't believe it. You wouldn't believe it unless you see it. And now there's a couple channels I follow on YouTube. We talked about all the time. Just Drove In and Mechanical. I think another one's Mechanical Failures or whatever. And they show stuff that's 1,000 times worse than that. Thousands.
I'm sure
worse than that.
And just to move aside on that point, I'm watching David Freiberger on Roadkill Garage. He's working on this car in sandals.
Oh, always.
I'm like, what is this guy doing? He's working in sandals.
That is one of my picks of him. My pans, rather, right till the day I die, is he plays up the California Surf Boy right to the very, very end. Shorts and board shorts and sandals.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and now they're pulling the engine. Thankfully, he had shoes on when they're pulling the engine out of that dart. But he's got literally the canvas sneakers.
Right. Yeah. Deck shoes.
Oh yeah, deck shoes. Right. Exactly. I mean, what is that? What is that going to protect if something falls off that engine, or if the engine itself falls off? I mean, what?
All right. I'll do a little shameless cross promote here. Thursday night, we had Joe Zolper on Plane and Track.
By the way, Thursday night, great show.
Joe
I
Zolper
totally suggest you watch it. It was a great show.
The head guy on Garage. I didn't know he was the head guy, and even Joe said a lot of guys hated him, and I was thinking to myself like, yeah, I was one of them really, because because he would kind of take charge. I'm thinking, who is this guy taking charge? I thought Bruno was the head guy. Truthfully, I thought he was the head guy, but I didn't know. And if they ever said it, maybe it was in episode 1 and I missed it. So I didn't know he was a shot caller. If I knew that, I would have viewed him in a different way. Honestly.
Okay.
Joe talked about a lot of this stuff on Thursday night where the TV show was concerned. And I said, sorry, Lewis, but like, I just felt myself taking over. It's like, I just got question after question for this guy.
Just watching the first 40 minutes, because that was as far as I got before I fell out. My head hit the keyboard. But to watch Terry and Joe go back and forth was comical. I loved it. I loved just to watch them.
Yes, well, those guys
watch the exchange.
They have a little bit of a relationship, and the CUDA that he is building, he bought from Joe, so they know each other, and
it was very, very funny. It was very
entertaining, very comical. That could be you get a good reel out of that if you want.
No, I meant to tell you that off air that was a really good Thursday show. But so you were saying, I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna have Joe. I'll get Joe on. And it's funny because I thought I was on the show with Joe before, but no. Lou had him on his show, and I watched it, and I guess I felt like I was on the show with him. So I'm going to get his info. We'll get Joe Zolper on this show, and we'll have.
Would love it. Yeah.
About all of that stuff. Now, as you see, he tends to go to an extreme, and he has to rein himself in. So I'll have to read him the riot act and let him know he's on terrestrial radio. And
right, exactly.
Not on the internet now, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely had he webbed a tapestry of linguistics.
And I went out on a limb. I said, you know what? Let me be journalistic here. Let me ask the question that everybody wants to know, but nobody asks. And I asked it, and he very, very politically backed off from it. So, and that was, what was it like working with the different women you worked with on the show? They work in mechanical capability. And I said, you don't have to name names or pull out incidents. I'm not looking to, you don't have to point at anybody specifically, but just in general.
Right.
And actually, Lewis jumped in and came to Bogey's defense, saying how good Bogey was. And then Joe, of course, backed up Lou on that. And then they kind of changed the subject.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I guess I got my answer. But I figured, hey, you know what? That's the kind of question. Sometimes it can lead somewhere, or
that's what you have to do.
I want to know. I always wondered about that.
Yeah, and as a journalist, that's what you do. As an interviewer, that's what you do. But you also can't keep harping on the same question all the time. If you get an answer where your interviewee sidesteps it, you go, okay, you're not going to, maybe one or two, maybe two is too many, just one follow-up on the answer, and then just move on.
That's all.
It.
But yeah, it was definitely a good, it was. Lewis said it was all good. He was listening. Yeah, Lewis, that was phenomenal, and you got to send me Joe's information, because that was a home run and a half. That was a great interview.
Yeah,
sorry if I stepped on your toes. Sometimes I do that. Like if I see that there's, it depends who the guest is. I may have a cadre of information in my head that I've wanted to talk to this person about, but never had the means. And sometimes I guess I just kind of let it go. And
right, and that's what I love about when you and I interview, because you always get down into the weeds and get the technical questions out of the way. And I'm like, I always say Larry King was my favorite interviewer, and he would ask questions like a teenage boy would ask. He just had a natural inquisitiveness. So I always like that we both took both sides of that interview spectrum.
And I will say, Lewis needs to break out that Terry and Joe just to make a reel out of that.
Oh,
that was gold.
That was. I was howling.
Did you see, even before he came on, Terry was kind of behind, because he was with him. He was behind him, and he was kind of making the faces.
I was chuckling.
He was playing around. That was gold. That you got a great reel out of that. Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I look forward to more of that. Of course, that's Thursday nights at 9 on Playing Traffic on Streamwriter, or it's live on Facebook, live on YouTube.
And you can catch a replay. That's how I always watch on the replay.
Sure.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. Very cool. No, it's a fine program, fine show.
We have our moments.
Yes.
Moments like with everything else, And right now, our moment on this show has come up because Kim is going to come in and do Thunder Road, the best of Springsteen and the band, as always, which means the audience will come back now, and they're going to. And they'll probably all want to call her too, because they didn't call us, but what the heck. So, Chris, now that I'm going to go outside, what do I tell the people waiting for me out in the parking lot?
Don't follow us home, and don't follow the Easter Bunny either, and bring out, and all come on back to listen to Bruce.
Exactly. All right. And we'll be back next week with more MotorMouth Radio. Ray Guarino, Chris Switzer, 90.3 WHPC. See ya.
See you, bye.